Happy new moon, bitches! Today, January 29th, we have a beautifully magical new moon in Aquarius. And in mundane astrology, the moon represents the people. And Aquarius is also the sign of people. It represents people, the collective, groups, friendship, and society, all of those interconnected webs that allow people to have a relationship beyond just a one-on-one context. And the new moon in Aquarius represents new opportunities and new beginnings for evaluating the state of the world and how we, on an individual and societal level, are holding space for people. One key attribute of any lunar energy is not only thinking about one's own emotional state, but also about one's needs, right? The moon is so deeply connected to our mother and our upbringing, so it reveals a lot of what we're needing on a nurturing level. So with this new moon in Aquarius, the question to ask ourselves now is, what do the people need? Since the new moon is in Aquarius, we have to think about Aquarian traits and themes, and I always think about eccentricity. Eccentricity, in a simple definition, is a deviation from any established pattern or norm. But Aquarius just doesn't go against the grain for the sake of being different. They do it to allow individuality to add flavor to the collective. You know, where a Capricorn state of mind might want everything to be like rigid and the same and follow a particular cookie cutter, Aquarius wants you to shape and mold the world in your own way, right? Through your own perspectives and your own experiences to add variety, diversity, and different levels of inspiration to the human experience. Additionally, when we think about Aquarius energy, we have to think about innovation. And the new moon, you know, is a textbook definition of how are we innovating and adding newness to our lives. And with that Aquarian flair, we have to consider societal and humanitarian innovations as well as technological innovations. I mean, we're in a really scary period of time when it seems as though the world is moving backwards. Many new laws, legislature, executive orders feel as though they're pushing the United States back to like a 1950s era kind of tea, when it was very difficult to be anything other than a straight white businessman. So as we navigate our personal life and take a big look at what is going on around you, ask yourself, how are we innovating society and our lives that pushes us forward, right? And progresses us towards the Aquarian ideal of a humanitarian utopia. I find that a lot of the magic that comes from this Aquarius new moon stems from examining the moon's rulership. Since it is in Aquarius, we have to look at both what Saturn and Uranus are doing, because Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius and Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. Saturn has been in Pisces since spring of 2023, and with Saturn in Pisces, we are finding structure through sacrifice, right? So how is this new moon influencing that idea or revealing themes about how can we let go of things to add a new structure, right? If we want to see change and build up a new life for ourselves, what are we ultimately going to have to give up a little? And right now, because Saturn is making a trine to Mars retrograde in Cancer, we also have to consider our victim mentality, right? Do you feel as though it is you versus the world, right? Are you allowing yourself to say, you know what? There are avenues and spaces in this world where I can work with others as opposed to feeling as though I'm being attacked by others. That trine between Saturn and Pisces and Mars retrograde in Cancer, it reminds us that hard work is going to be necessary and it takes time to build things up effectively. And often you're gonna need to make sacrifices to create the new structures you're looking for. The other ruler of Aquarius is Uranus, and Uranus is currently retrograde in Taurus, but don't worry, it literally stations direct tomorrow. And with that, it's been restructuring a lot of our safety nets. Since 2018, Uranus has been in Taurus, and that's a big reason why I believe so many of us has felt like the past 8 years, it's been really difficult to find our footing, and it's been difficult to really connect to those areas of life that normally provide us the Taurian security and practicality. And Uranus is also picking up a sextile to, you guessed it, Mars retrograde in Cancer. So there's an added level of urgency and desire to take action immediately, right? You know, as this new moon comes in, we're like, okay, let's fucking get to it. But we're still dragging our feet. We might be feeling a little burnt out because it's still retrograde energy, right? There's this ho-hum kind of like, woe is me, I don't know how it's gonna work out or if it's gonna work out. But the question that I'm posing for myself as I reflect on this new moon is, bitch, if you're not happy with the state of being you are in right now, why don't you just give it a try? Why don't you do something new? Why don't you do something different? Because clearly doing the same song and dance isn't getting you the tips that you thought it would, right? Are you just kind of sitting and complaining about things not working out, or going in your favor? Or will you take inspiration coming to you and apply it to your life? And if it doesn't work, then guess what? there's going to be other avenues and other paths for you to explore. So the planetary rulership of the new moon is very much a kick in the ass to help encourage us to take action and not let ourselves get too comfortable with sameness. Because it seems as though that comfortability has permeated through our lives over the past few years and now has transpired in a way that has given a specific few individuals the gusto to shake shit up in a negative way for the majority of the population. And the new moon isn't working in an isolated vacuum, right? The moon is conjunct the sun. That always happens whenever there's a new moon, but it's also conjunct Mercury and Pluto, which are both in Aquarius. And when we look at the new moon conjunct Mercury, we have to think about what are the people talking about, right? When you're out at the club shaking ass, what are the conversations that you're hearing, not only in your psyche, but all of the avenues of social interaction. I'm noticing a lot that every time that I go out, especially when I'm in drag at the club, I'm asking people, how's your 2025 going? And the response is resoundingly, oh, still here, surviving. And that's a really interesting sort of widespread sentiment that I'm seeing across the board. As important as protecting our peace is and not letting ourselves fall down these existential rabbit holes, we have to ask ourselves, is life worth living if it's just surviving, right? I think a lot of people are finding it challenging to live in our individuality, our power, our freedom, which are all Aquarian traits. So listen to the conversations of what people are asking for, right? Have new conversations, hard conversations, conversations that turn into debates that challenge you, right? To keep engaging with people and thinking, how can we get out of this rut that is limiting our human experience? And how can we get into a mindset where we're free flow in this communication and information that gives the individual more power and autonomy? Basically, how the fuck can we get to a place where everyone can exist without feeling as though they need to be something different than they are? The new moon is also conjunct Pluto. So what major transformations are you going through, right? Are you seeing them just on an individual level? Or are you seeing them on a grander scale in your life? We're seeing, like I said earlier, a lot of new laws, legislature, and executive orders in the United States that are changing how people can work and hold space for each other. We're also seeing it on a huge level with social media, going through a lot of changes based on what we can say, how we can say it, what platforms we can say it. Ask yourself, because Pluto isn't just about transformation, it's also about control. So ask yourself, what is controlling the people right now? What is controlling me, right? Am I allowing myself to say, okay, got it, there are these crazy fuck-ass things going on, but I'm still gonna live my life? Or are you hiding away? Because I think a lot of plutonic energy often wants you to kind of hide away and go into your hidey hole, which is fine, do what you gotta do what you gotta do during your rituals and all that jazz. But it's Aquarius energy, right? So it should be the freedom of people, both on an individual and a collective level, to just live their fucking lives without repression or oppression or any of the shuns that just limit the human experience. Are these changes really adding progress to the human experience, or are they taking away? Because if they're taking away, then bitch, we gotta do something different. Additionally, Jupiter is making a trine to the new moon, but Jupiter is still stationing retrograde in the sign of Gemini. So I expect that this new moon's gonna bring a lot of new ideas, a lot of things in the news are gonna be popping up, but they're probably gonna feel like a jumbled mess. It's going to feel as though they are confusing, they are distracting, it's gonna feel as though you're not fully capable of articulating yourself as effectively as you were hoping. And it might be easy to get disgruntled by the sheer volume of information that is coming in right now, but remember, you have power when you take it, right? How can you take it? You can take it by asking questions. Really sit with yourself and say, am I taking every piece of information or as fact, or am I asking the necessary questions to make sure that I have all of the potential answers? The chart having so much air right now, we need to be checking the facts. We need to be looking at the data. We need to make sure that we're not making any fuck-ass assumptions. I think with Jupiter and Gemini, the thought that keeps coming forward for me is, am I gaslighting myself, right? Am I convincing myself that a narrative that isn't real is actually happening? And of course, when we look at a grander scale, we know that some of the people in charge are definitely gaslighting the collective, but are we gaslighting ourselves by just saying, you know what, it is how it is, this is how I have to live, this is what I have to deal with? No, okay? We can make the fucking change if we take the effort. And in so many ways, I know that this new moon is going to be incredibly eye-opening, and it's going to be a time where we, the people, will rally together, especially if we take the high road of Aquarian energy. That looks like investing in community support. It looks like being an ally for people. It looks like creating opportunities in your immediate community and the grander community of whatever diverse background we fall into. However, just because there's a high road of Aquarius, there's also a low road of Aquarius, right? So if we take the low road during this new moon, it might just be a cold, isolated detachment from what everyone else is experiencing. It's very easy in America to live an individualistic life, and Aquarius can often fall down that road of individualism when they feel as though the collective isn't accepting their uniqueness, right? And they're walking out being like, oh God, everyone's looking at me because I feel like a weirdo, right? But how can we say, listen, we're not all that different. We all want eggs to be cheaper. We all want a night out with our friends where we can drink, laugh, and have fun and not worry about getting accosted by some stranger. We want to be able to take the person that we love home and have beautiful, intimate relations with them, followed by some really nice pillow talk. You see, we all want very simple, basic things, and I noticed that when we want more than our fill, that's when it becomes problematic. So how can we sit with this new moon energy and say, how do we want just enough for ourselves, right? How can we make sure that we are filling our cup just as much as we are allowing our neighbor to fill their cup? I'm just one diva. I don't have the answers on how to solve world peace or world hunger or anything like that, but I think it starts with as simply as just calling up your friends or your family and asking how their day is going, asking them what their life is looking like, right? The people that they spend the most time with and what they need. It's as simple as going to the soup kitchen on a Saturday morning, right? And helping those out who need a little bit more than you. It's as simple as sharing and donating to a GoFundMe for a family trying to rebuild their lives in Palestine right now, or any of those who are still fighting the wildfires in Los Angeles. Because there's so much going on, it can feel overwhelming to be like, I'm just one person, what can I do, right? And it's so easy to get caught in that trap. But as a collective, right, those simple small actions build up together, right? One step that you make can inspire someone else to make another step, right? It just builds and it snowball effects. And that's what we need to remind ourselves about this Aquarius new moon, that if we want to see change, we need to be willing to collaborate with each other and show up when our neighbors are asking for help. And our neighbors aren't just the people who exist right next door to us. They're the people who exist across the world in a different country, in our hometown. So on an individual level, how is this new moon going to impact you? I'm going to challenge you to pull out your natal chart and find where 9 degrees of Aquarius is, because that is the house that is going to be impacted the most by this new moon and where you're able to do the most manifestation. If you don't know how to do that, I dropped a little natal chart calculator down in the caption, so go calculate that and then come on back to hear how you can make the most of this new moon energy. If the new moon's in your first house, it's in your house of self. So the question I want you to ask yourself is, who are you? Are you hiding yourself or are you sharing yourself? Right now with the new moon in the first house, you have to think reinvention of the self, right? You have to acknowledge that you're growing, that you're changing, and that you're evolving with the times. So consider this as a kind of reintroduction exercise. Look in the mirror and say, hi, my name is insert name, and I am insert attributes about yourself. And then let that be expressed to your inner circle, and then your outer circle, and then ultimately to the world. Right? You should be finding that with this new moon, you're feeling as though you want to start stepping out into the world like weird Barbie, without a care in the world and just authentically showing up as you are. If the new moon is in your second house, it is in the house of finances. So right now the question is, what are you valuing, right? Are you putting too much emphasis or importance on material possessions or relationships that don't align with your sense of values or your self-worth? Right now, it is about changing your patterns of how you use the resources that are going to benefit yourself, but also your neighbor, right? It's still Aquarian energy. And you might find that this would be a good time to look at your spending habits. Maybe you've been impulse buying a little bit too much, but also just start planting the seeds with your boss about wanting to get a raise. Make sure that you are holding space for what you truly value at the end of the day, whether it be something material or something more experiential. If the new moon's in your third house, it's in your house of communications. Now I gotta ask you, how are you staying connected to the collective mind? Are you allowing yourself enough space to take a sigh of relief, and decompress so you don't fall down that rabbit hole of existential dread, but Are you still keeping up with the times, right? Are you reading? Are you checking the news? Are you making sure that all of those kind of like smaller, mundane nuances of daily life are an active part of your life? But I also want you to think about, how are you communicating to the world? What are the narratives that you are sharing by resharing a specific post on social media, right? What stories are you telling by telling someone, hey, I do or don't like your haircut? Read a book right now, okay? Talk to your friends about it. Engage in healthy conversations that are going to challenge you to put a message out into the world that actually fucking matters. If the new moon is in your fourth house, it's in your house of home, right? And it's as simple as asking yourself, how are you making your house a home? Are you respecting the internal sanctuary that exists within you by letting it be reflected in the four walls that you exist in? You know, when I think of the new moon in the fourth house, it really important to make sure that you start challenging yourself to having an open door policy, whether that be emotional transparency with your family members or quite literally telling your friends, hey babes, you have got a place to stay with me at my home, regardless of what's going on. I think the song Crowded Table by the Highwomen really emphasizes the call that the new moon in Aquarius is making in the fourth house. So listen to that song and reflect on how you can implement the themes of it. If the new moon is in your fifth house, it is in your house of passion. So how are you being inspired right now? Are you living in your own world of ideation and creativity, or engaging with the world that you hope to add flavor to? My stand-up comedy teacher, she always goes, you need to go to comedy shows because you will be inspired by seeing how other people tell their stories. So get out right now and make sure that you're partaking in the community's expression of whatever your passion is. Make sure that you are sharing your love and sharing your passion outwardly through being inspired by others, so that you are also going to inspire someone else. If the new moon's in your sixth house, it's in your house of work. So right now you're probably feeling a big urge and a big change to your daily lives and your routine. And baby, I'm in that boat with you because the new moon's in my sixth house. But I want you to ask yourself, is the day-to-day routine that you are following working for you? But I also want you to ask yourself, are you working for your community? You know, it is a really big time for you to ask and say, okay, how can I get out into the world and how can I make sure that I'm showing up for people, that I'm willing to help them when they need help from me? When they make that call, when they take that ask, right? Can I show up? Can I put forth the effort? Because there's going to be a time when I'm going to need someone to check in on my kids, maybe go grab a package that someone doesn't rip off your front porch. So right now, you need to make sure that you're adding service to part of your daily routine as much as you are making efforts to change your work life. The new moon's in your seventh house. It's in the house of relationships. So with the seventh house being activated, you're probably knowing a lot of new relationships right now. They're probably coming in and you're noticing that there are some sort of changes, right, to the reactions that make you say, why do I feel called to this person right now? Why do I feel called to invest energy and time into that area of my life? But I want you to make sure that you're holding space for people's individuality. Don't hold them to unnecessary expectations of what the dynamic of the relationship should be. Meet people where they are at and give them the grace to exist as they are. I think it's very easy for us to get butthurt and offended when someone doesn't put in as much effort as we put in, but it's a reminder that people go through their own experiences and that maybe they're not fully sharing everything with us, so we just have to give them that grace. Okay, cosplay as a hippie in the 70s. So you have to say, free love, okay? I'm gonna go out into the world and I'm going to take what you are giving me and I'm going to commit to showing up however you need me to. If the new moon is in your eighth house, it is in your house of shared experiences. And as someone who has the natal moon in my eighth house, I can find it's often a tricky place for the moon to be. And with the new moon in the eighth house, you're probably going to be uncovering and feeling the need to let a lot of the blockages that stem from fear or anxiety or some sort of deep repressed emotion that is within you go, okay? You might feel as though you have the urge to have some taboo conversations with family members or friends over the dinner table, but it's really about asking yourself, what are you sharing, right? Are you involving yourself in the necessary shadow work to remove any of those blockages that might keep you from holding space and maintaining healthy relationships? You know, it's easy, to transform the world, you need to transform from the inside first. It's like what RuPaul says. If you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else? Can I get an amen? With the new moon in your ninth house, it's very fun, it's very silly, it's very playful, because in one sense of the world, it's like a free pass to go buy a one-way ticket to Bali and see where the journey takes you. But in another world, it's also about learning, educating, and the wisdom that comes from experience. So really ask yourself, how am I letting myself learn from other people? How am I letting myself learn from my past experiences and my patterns as I exist in society? Are you allowing yourself to listen to the stories of others, absorb their wisdom, and apply it to their life? Or are you just keeping it to yourself, right? And letting yourself exist in your own mental capacity? It is essential for you right now to try something new and challenge yourself to break free from the typical routine. Take note of what you've learned, what's inspired you, and what has challenged your perspective of the world through whatever new experience. With the new moon in the 10th house, it's in the house of legacy, and the 10th house is also often viewed as the house of career. So, yes, the new moon in the 10th house, hey, you might have a new job coming down the pipeline, but I like to view it as the mark that we leave on the world. So, ask yourself, what is the legacy I'm leaving behind? If I were to wake up tomorrow, how would the world remember me? Would I be happy with that memory that I've left? I also think that you want to ask yourself, how are you letting yourself be supported by others in order to achieve your dreams or in order to achieve your goals? It can be very easy to steamroll your way to the top, and I think it's something that society has encouraged a lot of us to do, but professional collaboration is essential for you right now, okay? And it's gonna be essential for this next step in your journey. With the new moon in your 11th house, the house of society, you have the most literal experience with the new moon because the new moon falling in this house, it's falling in the house that is typically ruled by Aquarius. So, how are you spending time with people that are filling your cup? Are you noticing that the groups and the friends that you spend time with are building you up, or are they tearing you down? If the answer is no to either of those, then it's a good time to consider, all right, well, maybe I need to make some new friends. Still, it's also a good time to consider joining a club, maybe organizing a dinner party, just making sure that you are spending time with people. Host a party that reminds you and your loved ones that you've all got each other's back in these trying times, that there isn't an experience that is going to keep us isolated, but rather an experience that is going to keep us connected together. Bring whoever you want. Make it like, hey, show up, bring a snack, bring a friend, bring a date, bring a drink. I don't care. Just as long as you are making sure that you are thinking about how can I continue to stay as interconnected to others. And with the new moon in your 12th house, it's in the house of mysticism. So the 12th house is a witchy, occult energy. It's about our dreams, spirituality, all of those hidden things that we don't quite understand. However, Pisces typically rules this house. So we're looking at a lot of healing energy through this new moon. What actions, what changes, what shifts do you need to make in order to heal yourself and whatever you're going through? Are you reflecting on the changes in your life, perhaps through shadow work or esoteric practices, and making the necessary pivots so that you don't get caught up in specific cycles of worry, anguish, or anxiety? Right now, I think it's important for anyone with the new moon in the 12th house to do some sort of meditative practice and go through that sense of meditation by offering up some sense of limitless compassion. Tell the world that you are ready to open yourself up to whatever it might throw at you. And this is still going to be a great time to give yourself compassion. And the people that are coming into your life are going to help bring the same levels of love and healing that you have been looking for. So, my dear sweet little chickadees, that is all I got for you on this new moon. I hope that this was helpful. Make sure to drop a comment, subscribe. Let me know if you have any feedback or thoughts on what kind of astrological content you want to see coming in the future. Sending you all the best and happy new moon.